The worst year for a lot of us for our mental as well as physical health. So joining us this morning is best-selling author, coach Lisa Goldenthal.
Hello and welcome. I'm Lisa G, your host. You're at the top of your game, yet the game is changing faster than ever. Strategies that got you here aren't the ones that'll keep you here. The pressure is relentless, and the fear of obsolescence looms large. That's why I'm here. Welcome to the new podcast series, Disrupted: How to Be Gritty and Unlock Performance in Business, Mindset, Wellness, and Success to help you master disruption.
Thanks for coming, and I'll see you soon.
Welcome to the podcast. Today, we're honored to have a seasoned expert in marketing with us. He's the CEO of Response Marketing Group, bringing over 35 years of experience leveraging data insights, target messages to drive revenue and customer growth. He's a thought leader in tourism marketing, leads RMG's travel and tourism practices, serving prestigious clients like Arkansas Tourism, Georgia Tourism, and the Ritz-Carlton got my attention in particular. Frequent speaker at major industry events, including Southeast Tourism Society, Forrester Marketing Conference. Please welcome to the podcast, Jim Harenchar.
Wonderful. Thank you, Lisa.
Thanks. I'm glad I got your name right, or at least I'm hoping I am.
You nailed it.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's jump in with your experience. How has tourism marketing changed, and what strategies are driving growth today?
Well, I will tell you that true story, 2016, I think it was, if my memory's right, 16, 17. I happened to have been invited to speak at an industry conference. Our firm has done work within tourism for a number of years, but we were not really what I would call on frontline speakers with a lot of the larger regional or national tourism societies. Anyway, we're at a conference, and it was, say, a Sunday to Wednesday event. And I think my session was a Tuesday morning. And on Monday night, the Florida State Legislature was voting on whether or not they were going to cut spending or funding for Florida by 50% from $80 million to $40 million. So we're not talking about an insignificant number. And I had my notes and my session all planned out, and I said, this is too good to pass up, right? So I kind of let's last minute curveball here. Let's, put that aside and let's focus on why it's so important to be able to leverage things like data and visitor intelligence to be able to come up with an ability to evaluate return on investment. Because the legislature was basically asking Visit Florida, how do you justify your existence? Why do we need to continue to fund you, and at the rate that you're requesting funding? And so I would tell you that that was clearly a moment in time when everybody woke up and said, shoot, we just can't rely on getting our same same dollars that we have allocated by whatever our funding sources are year on year. And there were ripple effects of that all the way down from, Florida happens to be the largest funded state of our 50. And it had such ripple effects that people woke up and said, we really need to understand how we validate our existence and make sure that our funding sources know what we do and how we do it and how we measure success.
Wow, it's so good that you were able to roll with it. It's such a massive cut, like 50%. And obviously, you're still driving revenue and growth. So why don't you jump into just leading RMG's travel and tourism practice? What are the key changes and opportunities for marketing within the tourism industry? And also, does that apply to marketing in general?
Yeah, well, I would tell you our firm in October will celebrate 38 years, which is no small feat. So we're very excited about that. When we started in the business, Lisa, and it predated me, I'm old, but I'm not this old. When they started in 1986, there was really only two channels for marketing that we would call below the line channels, right? So yes, there was radio, TV, and billboards; those existed, but below the line, there was really only two options, and that was telemarketing and direct mail.
Right.
There was no internet. And so both of those weren't really kind of held in high esteem within the pantheon of advertising channels. It was kind of the dirty workhorse, right? So since then, the proliferation of digital has really changed the whole landscape. And so now, whereas folks back in the 80s and even early 90s were deciding, are we going to do telemarketing? If so, how much are we going to budget? Are we going to do direct mail? Same question. Now it's a matter of what is my budget and how do I allocate across that channel? And am I prepared to be able to come up with some form of ROI to justify money on the influencer channel, money on the social channel? There are still a lot of clients that do direct mail, not at the levels that they did 25 years ago, but it's part of the mix, right? So there's a lot of places to put your dollars. And what we advocate with our clients is just making sure that you understand, how do we come up with response attribution? What's working? How do we evaluate ROI? And that way you can feel very comfortable going to sleep every night that we're able to tell our funding sources, our partners, exactly what our performance looks like and what we know about our clients.
Well, that's so good when you get down to ROI. That's what it's all about anyhow. And I feel like, I'm sure that you will tell me the exact numbers, but people need to be touched like a certain amount of times to even make a buying decision. I don't know if it's 8, 7, 9, 11, whatever. So how do you calculate ROI of like an influencer or social media post when they might have also been influenced by all the other things?
Well, I would tell you that our advice is very simple. And honestly, we have a lot of clients that I would define as immature marketers. Not because they don't have experience or not because they haven't been well educated, more so because they've not really embraced using, whether that's data, whether that's analytics. And so as a result, they're comfortable every year saying, well, we've done this, so let's just do that same thing, without any real measurement. What we look at is say, everybody has some finite budget. For one client, that finite budget could be $100,000. For another client, it could be $100 million. But everybody has a finite number. And so constructing a marketing strategy and plan across all those channels, like you just touched on, is really dependent upon some form of test and learn, right? So if we say, influencer marketing is important, is it as important in our mix as we think it is? Let's start by putting some percentage. Is that 5%, 10%, 20%? I would certainly say it's probably somewhere between a single digit and a low teen digit if you've never done it before. Let's dip our toe in the water. Let's practice a crawl, walk, and run strategy. Let's measure the effectiveness to the level that we can ascribe some form of response attribution. And then we'll know going forward that, gosh, that initial 10% has yielded us a 3x return. Next year or next quarter, we need to really up our spend in that category because we've defined success.
Wow. I love your point about testing because obviously your industry is tourism marketing and the data points, but this seems like it would apply to other industries too, wouldn't it?
Very much so. In fact, so we started in financial services. If you go back into the 80s and 90s up until 2000, really, financial services was one of the leading industries from a direct mail perspective. I mean, I don't know about you, but there was a lot of years there, people go to the mailbox and there was a credit card invitation to apply offer or an equity line of
I
credit.
remember all that.
Right? Yeah. So, believe it or not, we still see it, right?
Oh, yeah.
That has not gone away entirely. Capital One built a business, $1 billion business on direct mail for credit cards. So it's still very relevant in the marketplace. And so financial services was where we cut our teeth. We advised clients within the FI market on how to best identify the most likely responders, building predictive models, and then saying, rather than just blindly mail 1 million pieces, keep your fingers crossed and hope you get a 2% response. Let's narrow that market down to 750,000 of the most likely responders that are built on a model from your existing customers. And we still, Lisa, apply that same methodology in every other industry that we're in. And we have some diverse ones. We work in the healthcare space. We work with veterinary. We work in nonprofits. We work in retail. We work in some industries, honestly, that had you asked me 5 years ago, did you think you guys were going to be working in the state travel departments or with state departments of transportation? I would have said no. I don't know what could we possibly do in that space, but we actually do. We work with a client who is in the business of building bridges, roads, and tunnels. And they use some of our ad technology to measure patterns and traffic of those individuals based on their utilization of their highways.
Well, I love the fact that this crosses over. It's not just one industry, because marketing is everything, or people that are in sales would think sales is everything. And of course, having good product is everything too, and good referrals and good recommendations. But jumping in to one more topic, my final topic I want to talk to you about is, as a speaker, what different trends are you seeing right now? If you're going to all these conferences, what major trends in marketing are you seeing now on the conference level, and where should we focus right now?
Well, what I find fascinating, and maybe in another life I'll come back, is this. I'm seeing a lot of folks that I'm going to put in the category of futurist, right? A lot of speakers are being asked, what is the next year to 10 years going to bring for our industry, depending upon what industry you're in? And so, as you've pointed out, we do a lot in the marketing and advertising space. And so frequently, if there is a group of marketers within tourism or a group of marketers within financial services, that's what we're being asked to talk about, is what's going to change. And, I think the landscape does change so quickly. You asked me 5 years ago what role would influencer marketing play, I probably would have laughed at you and said, that's a fad and that'll never be around and it's never going to get any traction. I would have been wrong, right? So clearly I'm not a futurist, or at least that my crystal ball didn't allow me to see that one. But I do think that folks want to understand what is going to change most dramatically in the landscape. And I think that, there's always, the economy plays a part in that. I think, the rest of this year, I think to some degree is going to be very much predicated on what's happening in politics, and that's going to play a part of it. And then just kind of new advent of an adoption of new technologies that none of us might have seen coming. Always play a role. So to me, it's the mix of those elements to understand how we think that's going to impact both our daily lives and our businesses.
Well, I love the way you just have to always have an open mind in business, because it's rapidly changing now with AI, and all of the things with marketing. So what would be the final message on how you would want to leave my audience on how we can be unstoppable in this uncertain environment, disruptive environment in marketing?
Well, I have tried my best throughout my career to be a student of the advertising industry. I try to read books that are relevant, that are informative, both those that are, maybe very specific about take the adoption of AI. I'm still mystified by it, to be quite honest. I by no means would say, I'm an expert in the adoption of AI, but I remain fascinated by it. I think that you have to just be aware of what's going on in the space. One of our original founders at RMG just retired about 2 years ago, and he was very, very active in the industry for a long, long time and got to 69. And We as like a lot of businesses had a tough time in COVID. When you're in the tourism industry and the federal government's telling you to stay at home and not travel, it's really tough to market.
Oh, I
And
feel you on that. Yeah.
yeah, so we really had a difficult time. But I will say that COVID was one factor, but more so it was the evolution of technology and the adoption of technology that led my business partner to ultimately say, you know what, Jim, this business isn't any, it's not for me anymore. He grew up in a period of direct mail. He knew that inside and out. That
Yeah.
channel has really, become much less of a player in the space. It hasn't gone away, but it's much less of a player. And he said, there's so much to learn now. He's like, I'm 69 years old. I want to enjoy my retirement. I build a nice firm and I don't, this isn't one thing I can be an expert in. So I advise, to your question, I advise people just to stay up with what's going on, both in their industry and in the broader sense of the economy, so that they have a way to be able to understand what the potential application is, and they see things coming before it's too late.
Well, thanks, Jim. You've been a fabulous guest on the podcast. Where can people find you and learn more about your ninja marketing secrets?
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, I'm glad you asked. We actually have an exclusive offer for your listeners of the podcast that we want to share. So I would encourage everyone to go to www.rmg-usa.com/WholeCEO. And you'll see there kind of not just an array of what our services are, but an opportunity for your listeners to get discounted rates on some of the products and services we provide. So rmgusa.com/WholeCEO.
Well, thank you for doing that. I'm going to check it out. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you much.